everybody, I have another video tutorial from Hair Hardware, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make this entire bow. This is a boutique style hair bow. It has a lot of extras added to it. We have surrounding loops, a double loop topper, we've got a knotted center, it's a double bow. We have the boutique style bow on the back and the front. We've got some spikes and tags. There's a lot to this bow, but it's actually really easy to make. And I'll show you how to make each part. To make the surrounding loops, which is this part of the bow right here, I'm going to make 2 sets of loops. You're going to use a piece of ribbon that is 13 inches long and heat seal the ends. Now you're going to need to mark the center of the ribbon. So since it's 13 inches long, we're going to mark it at 6.5 inches. And you're going to take your glue gun and you're going to put a little bit of glue in the middle, and then I'm going to take one end and I'm going to bring it around to the center point and glue it perpendicular. Then I'm going to take another, do the same thing with the other side, put another dot of glue, bring the other side to the center. So when you're done, you should have a piece that looks like this. Now because the loop on this bow has 4 loops for the surrounding loops, I've made another one. And to put them together, I'm going to put glue in the center of one of the loops, and then I'm going to glue it like this. And that's your surrounding loop piece. Spikes and tags are really made the same method. The spikes are the pieces that stick up here. They kind of look like they're in an X behind the bow. And tags are usually when you just stick one piece of ribbon and it will stick out on the side like this. It doesn't have the corresponding X look to it. There's a few different ways that you can trim the edges. This type is sometimes called a double spike or a fishtail edge. And to make that edge, what you need is a good pair of sharp scissors, and you definitely need a wood burner. So to make that, you're going to fold your ribbon end in half. I've cut this piece of 7/8 grosgrain ribbon to 5 inches long. That's a pretty typical length for spikes. You can adjust it up or down depending on how big your bow is. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to start cutting low on the fold side and then cut up towards the end. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut a little triangle out. And when I open it up, you'll see that we have the fishtail end. So I'm going to cut both sides. And this really will fray if you don't seal it. Sealing the fishtail ends can be a little tricky because you want to keep that sharp edge to the spike. So I'm using a wood burner that has a chisel tip, and I'm going to start at the center, the inside part of the spike, and I'm just going to very lightly touch the wood burner and work towards the end of one area, one side. And then I'm going to do the other side of the spike. If you do that, you will avoid getting that curved look on the inside. So just flip your piece of ribbon around and seal the other side in the same manner. And for this bow, I made 2 of these spikes and 1 of the tags. So you need a total of 3 pieces of ribbon to get this part right here. Now we're going to make the boutique bow. And there's a few things that you can use to make things a whole lot easier for you. First of all, I'm using 7/8 of an inch grosgrain ribbon. This is the yellow ribbon for the front of the bow, and I cut this to 22 inches. I'm also going to use a pencil, a salon clip, a ordinary pin, and I prefer the ones that have the plastic ball on the end, And I'm also going to use a piece of narrow ribbon. This ribbon is 1/4 of an inch wide, and it's sheer ribbon. It's like organza type of ribbon. So what I'm going to use the pencil for is to mark the ribbon in a few places. Just make sure that everything is perfectly proportioned. Now, because the ribbon I'm using is 7/8 of an inch wide, I'm going to make a mark about 1 inch from the end of the ribbon on both sides. And I usually mark that unless I'm adding tails to the bow. In this case, I'm not adding any tails to the bow. And I do 1 inch because the ribbon is about 1 inch wide itself. If you were using 5/8 of an inch ribbon, then you would make this mark at the end about 1/2 an inch from the end. So in general, do that mark about the same width as the ribbon. So now between these two marks at the end, you should have 20 inches of ribbon. So you're going to make a mark in the center, and then between the end mark and the center mark on this side is 10 inches. So you're going to make a mark where you have 5 inches here and 5 inches here. And on the other side, you're going to do the same thing. Right in between the end mark and your center mark, you're going to make that mark there. Now this is where you're going to use the pin. Take the pin and pierce the center mark with your ribbon. And then take one end of your ribbon, flip it over, and pierce the pin through the end, that mark you made at the very end. And then take the other side, flip it over, and pierce the other side. So your ribbon should look like this. Now hold it in the middle, and then find that center mark that you made, which should now be at the top of the loop. Bring it down to the middle and pierce it through the pin like this. And then do the same thing with the other side. Now you can see that the bow started to take shape. You have the cross in the front, and you should have 2 pieces in the back of ribbon that are straight, and they lay right on top of each other. Now you're going to insert it into your salon clip. The salon clip comes in really handy here. It's kind of like a third hand to hold things into place while you're making sure that your ribbon is spaced the way you want it, that the loops are even. And these are the things you're going to want to look for. This is what's going to make or break how well your bow turns out. You know that everything is even because you made those marks, so you don't have to worry about one loop being bigger than another. But these are the things you need to look for. The front of the bow, make sure that this is an X and that it's even. If you want your bow to be wider, make a wide X. If you want a taller bow that has some loops that are kind of like perkier tall loops, then you're going to want to adjust this to make a tall X. And once you get those X's right, make sure that you have the center of where the X comes together in between the salon clip here and here. Flip it over and make sure that this is straight. Do you see how mine is even just a little bit crooked right there? That will make my bow turn out lopsided. So I'm going to take this, and I can kind of slide the back without affecting the front, and I can adjust this and make sure that the back looks straight. If it's not straight now, it's definitely not going to look right after you tie it. And once it's tied, you really can't make any adjustments. So this is the time to make sure everything looks perfect. So the back of my bow looks straight. The front has a nice even X. And now I'm going to take the pin out, but I'm going to leave the ribbon in the salon clip. So I'm going to take the ribbon that I'm using to tie the center. I'm going to place it inside either the opening around the bow. The straight pieces are the back of your bow, and that's the side you want to tie it off on. So I'm going to pull the ribbon tight, and then I'm going to double knot it. Then you can take it out of the salon clip, and you'll see that you have a perfectly sized, the loops are even, and your bow is ready to move on to the next step. Now I'm going to use basically the same technique to make the double loop topper, which is the center, this blue 2-loop center on top of the bow. For this I'm using 5/8 of an inch ribbon, and it is 7 inches long. And a double loop topper is basically half of a boutique bow. So we don't need to make all the marks that we made on the previous piece of ribbon. We just need one mark in the center point, which is at 3.5 inches since it's a 7-inch piece of ribbon. So I'm going to pierce the center, and instead of taking the end and folding it over like we did with the boutique bow, you're just going to take the end and pierce it right on top so that your ribbon should look like this. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other side. So you have your ribbon looking like this with a loop on either side. Now you're going to take your ribbon and you're going to give it a little twist on the top, still having that pin hold it in place in the center. You're going to give it a little twist, and then you're going to insert it into your salon clip. And I lost a little bit of my twist when I put it in there, so I'm just going to make an adjustment. So it should look kind of like a figure 8 in your clip. Now I can remove the pin, and I'm going to tie the center just like I did the boutique bow. Put your bow tying ribbon in on either side, and then tie the center tight. And when you take it out of the salon clip, you have a cute little double loop topper to add to your bow. Now that I have all the pieces that I need for this bow made, I am going to spray it with a fabric stiffening spray. And I do that because these bows can just lose their shape over time. You might get like a floppy loop, and you definitely want your spikes to be sprayed with a stiffening spray. That way they'll stick out nice and straight all the time. They won't ever flop around no matter how long they are. It's really a very useful bow making part. So what I do is I just lay out each piece, and before I spray it, carefully make sure that your bow is shaped exactly the way you want it. Because once you spray it with a stiffening spray and it dries, you're not going to be able to adjust it. So I have everything the way I want it, and you don't need to drench it, you just need it to be moist. So I put a piece of paper down so I don't ruin my mat, and I'm going to take the spray and spray each piece. Like I said, it just needs to be a little moist. You don't have to completely drench it. It takes maybe about 15 minutes to dry completely. If you find that it's still not quite stiff enough, then you can spray it again and wait for it to dry, and it really will create a nice stiff bow to work with. To make the lined alligator clip, I'm going to use a single prong alligator clip, 4.5 inches of 3/8 grosgrain ribbon, and I'm going to line the clip with this tape. This is a double-sided tape. It's called D670 fillet tape, and it's different than your typical double-sided scrapbooking ribbon. This is a ribbon that's specially designed to adhere fabric and metal. So it makes a really nice smooth finish for your clip. You can use a glue gun if you like. With the glue gun with lining clips, you do tend to get lumps and bumps on it, and this tape makes a nice smooth finish. So you're going to take a piece off of the roll and trim it. And the tape is double-sided, so you'll have a paper lining on the back that you'll need to peel off. So I've peeled off a little bit. I'm going to pinch open the alligator clip, put it inside, the ribbon inside the clip, and then peel off the rest of the tape. stick the ribbon on the top of the alligator clip, and then I'm going to push the ribbon into the hinge part of the clip and then line the back of the alligator clip. And as you can see, it leaves this prong right here exposed. That's why it's called a partially lined alligator clip, and that makes it real easy to slide in and out of your hair. Now I'm going to add the center ribbon to the middle of the big boutique bow for the back, the smaller boutique bow for the front, and to the double loop topper. I've already added the center ribbon piece to the double loop topper and the printed back bow, but I'm going to show you how to add it to this front bow. I'm just adding a smooth wrap around the middle, and I'm doing that because I'm going to add the embellishment. You can also make a knot and add it to the center, but if you're adding an embellishment, you probably want that center smooth. So I'm going to put glue in the middle. Then I'm going to take the 3/8 of an inch ribbon that I'm using for the center, place it right on there, and pull it to the back. Now this ribbon is too long for the center, so I'm going to pull it straight back and just trim the edges off about 1/4 of an inch from the center. Then I'm going to put some glue in the middle and glue one side down. Careful you don't burn yourself on this part. You're dealing real close with glue, and hot glue is super quick to burn. Put another piece of glue on the back, or another dot of glue, and bring that around. Just make sure that back is securely glued. Okay, all my pieces are now dried, and we're ready to put the bow together. Now this bow is it's like two bows that have been glued together back to back, and we have the spikes in the middle. And if you'll notice, with the boutique style bows, the top of it, you can see where it has dimension and it sticks up, looks kind of loopy, and the back side looks flat. For this bow, I'm putting the bows together back to back, so it's flat side to flat side. And I do that because I want the spikes to be in the middle, and I want the spikes to stick out nice and straight, and when you put the bows together back to back, it gives the bow dimension without when you put them together front side to front side and you just stack them like that, it can be okay in some circumstances, but especially when you're adding spikes in the middle, you tend to come up with this kind of curl together mess. So I'm going to put them together back to back. So I'm going to make two separate bows. I'm going to start with the surrounding loops, then I'm going to glue down the center, or the bow that is solid, and then I'm going to glue the double loop topper on top of that, and then I am going to glue the embellishment in the center. So first I'm going to put glue in the center of the surrounding loops. I'm going to glue down the solid bow, and then I'm going to add more glue on top. I'm going to put the double loop topper, and then I'm going to add the embellishment that I'm using for the center. This kind of sparkly pink square that I'm going to glue down so that it's like a diamond shape like that. The next thing I'm going to do is make the spikes, and they're 5.5 inch spikes, so make sure that you put glue in the center. Just going to glue them together like they're flat. I'm not going to tie them. Sometimes you can tie spikes together too, but in this case I want them flat. And I'm going to put more glue in the center, and I'm going to put that other piece that's like a tag. It's just that one flat piece. And now I'm going to glue this whole piece on top of it. So more glue in the center. and then place the bow right on top of the spikes so it'll look like this. Now I'm going to glue the alligator clip onto the back bow before I attach it to this. Now remember, we're wanting the alligator clip on the front of the bow this time because this is going to be glued together back to back. So to glue the alligator clip on, put a strip of glue along the entire alligator clip top and then just glue it to the center of the bow so it looks like this. Now turn the bow over, put glue along the back, and then glue the two bows together back to back. Kind of glance at the centers, make sure that your centers are lined up, that everything will look symmetrical. And your bow is complete. There really aren't too many steps to it. Once you get the hang of making the different pieces, you'll be able to put it together real quick. You can add more to this if you're always looking for ways to add more to your bows. Surrounding loops can be made with wider pieces of ribbon. You can definitely use 1.5 inch ribbon. There's just so many possibilities, color combinations, and it's actually pretty easy to make.